Hi everyone, welcome to week 5. This week we're going to talk about selecting external resources that align very well with the assessments that you've already designed in your Canvas sandbox. So last week you designed an active learning activity. What we want you to do this week is to look for a couple of resources that will align well with that activity and will support student learning so that they'll be able to succeed on the activity. Lots of different kinds of resources that you can use for this. Let me jump into the course and show you some options. So here we are in week 5. Let's go into the learning guide. This week, it's going to be about discovering the library resources at LaSalle first. We've invited a couple of librarians into the course for this week to monitor the discussion, to answer questions, and offer feedback on resources that best align with those assignments you've designed. We're going to ask you to include external resources in a Canvas module in your sandbox following fair use guidelines. That can be tough in some cases, but we are going to ask you to look at the legality of resources that you're sharing and whether or not it is appropriate to share them. And a straightforward assignment where we ask you to publish your sandbox. Resources for this week, this is a good one. It's quick. It will give you a tutorial on how you can access resources at LaSalle Library. This one is a LaSalle Library Copyright and Scholarship Fair Use Library Guide, where you can learn more about what constitutes fair use and how you can most appropriately share resources. We have a couple of resources here, which are primarily about how you can design things in Canvas. And then we have the discussion and the assignment for the week. Take a look at these optional resources too, as well, to learn more about how you can best design the resources into your course site. But these are obviously the primary ones to focus upon. Let's jump into the discussion to show you what it's going to be about. This will be the prime thing for this week. We're going to ask you to basically consider the assignments that got designed in week 4. You created an active learning assignment. So now what we want you to do is to link to or describe at least 2 separate resources that can prepare students to succeed on that active learning assignment. So that can be a module orientation video like this. It could be a tutorial that you've discovered or recorded. It could be a narrated PowerPoint. It can be a required reading from a textbook or a TED Talk or a blog post or a link to a resource in the LaSalle Library. It could even be links to student models, work that previous students have done that show what would be an effective product. We're going to ask you to describe how these resources support the assignment you've created, and then reply to your peers. Give them some feedback about the accessibility. Is the resource confusing or distracting or hard to read in some way? Would it be accessible to people who are differently able? Think about the legality of it too. Are you linked in something that might not be appropriate to link to? That's why we have the librarians. Well, part of the reason we have the librarians this week is to provide guidance and feedback about how you can link to resources appropriately so that students can access them most easily and at the same time succeed. Last thing we'll ask you to do this week is to publish your sandbox. Straightforward assignment. We'll ask you to go into your Canvas sandbox, and if you have not already, make sure to change the course status to published. The reason why is because you're going to have people who are visiting your course site next week to give you feedback on the assignments you design, and they're not going to be able to visit it if you don't publish it. So we want to make sure that everyone does that this week so that you know, have it prepared for next week, and so that you just know where that is when you start teaching your own course. Okay, that's what we're doing this week. Last things before I sign off. When you think of backward design, people quite frequently think it's a little counterintuitive to design objectives first, then assignments, and then wait until the end to choose the resources. They say, well, you know what, I already have my textbook chosen. But there are many options and many situations where, for instance, you'll be in week 1 and you'll think, well, chapter 1 doesn't really work. Chapter 2, in fact, chapter 8 is the best place to start. And then chapter 6, and then maybe this other resource down the line. That's what we're thinking about here. When it comes to backwards design, you want to first think about what students need to learn, what they need to be able to know and do by the end of the course, and then what activities you're going to be giving them. Now, this week, we have to consider what are the best resources to share to make certain they succeed on those? And that can be a challenging experience, but that's what we're going to focus on this week. So, if you have questions, please leave them in the questions and resources form, as always, or email us at tlc@lasalle.edu, or give us a call, 617-243-2001. Thanks. See you online.